Hey everybody, how you doing? It's me again, Truth Teacher, and I am coming at you again with another response video. Um, so this one is dedicated to a YouTuber who I really respect a great deal, a fellow YouTuber. Her name is Dominican Childlike Language. I'll leave her link down below so that you can check out her channel. If you're interested in topics dealing with the history and the culture of the Dominican Republic, current political issues that they're facing, I would definitely say check out her channel because she's a very intelligent woman, a person of who I consider to be somebody of impeccable character, and I've really learned a lot from her. So, Sophia, sweetie, I told you I would dedicate something to you, and here it is. And to be honest, this is something that has been on my heart to do for quite a few months now. As you know, over the summer, in July, my mom passed away after battling a couple of years, 2 years, with the effects of a stroke. I'm not going to get into all the details here, but it was an extremely tragic situation. And around that time, like the week my mom passed, as a matter of fact, I think it was probably even the day that my mom passed, you had put out a video talking about women's issues. And even before that, I saw the kind of negative verbal abuse that you were getting from a particular individual, a fellow Dominican, whose name I will not mention. But, at that point, I had written you a message, and in that message, I quoted a few Bible passages to the effect that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Now, I know that you are very patriotic, very nationalistic, and I applaud you for that. But unfortunately, my experience has shown me that in life, there are instances where even though we want to have that sense of community, bonding, whatever, support of our fellow countrymen, even a lot of times our fellow family members, sometimes people are just so toxic that you really have to let them go. You can't embrace them no matter how noble your intentions are, because what they're carrying, it's almost like it's radioactive. It's going to do you more harm than good in the long term. And sure enough, this person really showed their true nature. Just the mean spirited, hateful. Um, I really have nothing good to say about this person at all. And what really struck me the most was the way your femininity, your role as a woman in society was being attacked. And it was this past video that you put out about dealing with misogyny in Dominican society that really touched my heart to make this video. I know that you felt very hurt and I guess even betrayed because there were a lot of people who were criticizing you for making those videos that you did addressing this person. And my advice to you is that you really can't take that to heart because you have to understand that at the end of the day, the people who are attacking you, these are not people who represent the ordinary Dominican community, society, these are people who are of the same toxic mindset as this person, this individual. You know, like the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. So that's all. When you get these negative comments, that's all you're getting, sweetie. You are not getting people who represent the authentic point of view of the actual Dominican community attacking you. This is a very small group of specific people who are emotionally damaged. So you really cannot take that to heart. And I hope that my words will give you some encouragement and help you to feel better about that situation. You know, you were talking about these guys that they criticize you. They want to focus on African American males who go down to the Dominican Republic, you know, sex tourism. And personally, as a man, I find that sort of thing really disgusting. As a man of African descent, a fellow Caribbean person, I find it disgusting because I know that women who engage in those kinds of activities, they're not doing it because they want to. They're doing it out of desperation and they have no other choice. And to me, as a person of African descent, who comes from the Caribbean, who has a history in his background of slavery, of colonialism, classism, I could not, in all good conscience, go to another country and exploit somebody else's desperation just for my own personal physical gratification. I find that completely reprehensible. But yeah, I mean, you do have a point. Where are these guys defending, you know, Dominican women from these African American sexpats? But I wouldn't just stop there. I would say, where are they defending the honor of Dominican women in general from any of these people, whether they be African American, Canadian, American, European? Why do you allow this kind of situation to exist in your country? And I've confronted a lot of these trolls who criticize me, blah, 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 accusing me of being, you know, an Afrocentric, that only interested in Dominican women, and I'm a sex tourist. I've never been to the Dominican Republic. I would like to go there, but definitely not to engage in that kind of behavior. But my reply to them always was, okay, you're over here and you're blaming African American men for being sex tourists, but what are you doing to help your country to make sure that women have access to education and options so that they don't look to prostitution as a solution for the economic situation that they're in? You know, and when I put, nobody ever has an answer for me for that. The fact that prostitution is legal in the DR, I'm sorry. Just because it's legal, that doesn't mean it's okay. I think that's abominable that the government allows that to happen. And to me, when a government does that, it seems like, to me, they're just really saying that they just really don't give a damn about you. You know, like, they just, like, you know, have an attitude, all right, just go out there and fend for yourself. But, you know, that aside, that's an issue that, you know, that's up to the Dominican community to handle that situation. Me as a Jamaican, it's not my place to dictate the policies or laws of the Dominican Republic. I can only express my opinion as a man and as a fellow Caribbean person. This is how I feel about it. But it's really up to the men and the women of the Dominican Republic to to address that situation. Um, a lot of what you said in your last video was dealing with the issue of infidelity and misogyny in Dominican culture. And, unfortunately, this is not a situation that is unique to the Dominican Republic. Everything that you could criticize, the negative aspects of the Dominican Republic in this regard, are the exact same things that I saw and I experienced growing up in Jamaica and in the Jamaican community. This is a problem that is widespread throughout the Caribbean in general. And I really find it disgusting because I see the effects that it has on the lives of people. I see the effects that it has on the lives of the women who are used in this way. I see the effects that it has on the children who are born out of these unions. It's like an epidemic. It's like a disease. You have married men who have their wives, who have their homes, who have their children, and for some reason they can't be satisfied with that. I mean, I don't understand that. If you have a good woman at home, what the hell are you going out there in the street looking for? You're gonna leave sleeping in a clean bed to go outside and roll around in the gutter and then be proud of that. That makes absolutely no sense to me. No sense at all. But for some reason, this is something that happens in our societies, and no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to address it. Nobody wants to hold these men accountable for that kind of behavior. And I can't understand women who allow themselves to get caught up in a situation like this, because at the end of the day, man, it's like women are the ones that end up holding the shitty end of the stick all the time. I've experienced this myself in my life. I used to work at a store when I was in college back in the 90s, and my manager, he was married. He had two beautiful children, and his wife had just had another baby, newborn baby. And he started pursuing one of the shop girls. And I told him, look, this girl, she's emotionally hurt. And I knew because she had told me her family story. She wasn't asleep about. She was really emotionally very broken. And she was craving somebody to show her love. And I said this to him. She's not looking to be a plaything. She's looking for someone to love. Leave her alone. You don't want to do this. But still, he continued to pursue it. So then I tried to speak to her. And I told her, listen, sweetie, he's my friend. I love him. But he is a married man. You have to understand that in the eyes of society, in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of God, he is a married man. He belongs to someone else. And if you go and you get tangled up in this situation, sweetie, when the shit hits the fan, you are going to be the one holding the shitty end of the stick, because the blame is going to be on you. She didn't receive what I had to say to her. She got defensive, and I was trying to bring, what was she said, guilt and condemnation on her, and blah blah blah, and she prayed about it and everything is all right. Sure enough, she ends up getting pregnant. Sure enough, Mr. Wonderful decides that, you know what, that's not his baby, because he had a vasectomy and blah blah blah, and that's not his kid. He drops out. He drops off the face of the earth. She can't find him. You know, he wants her to get an abortion. She's like, okay, well, if you want me to get an abortion, you pay for it. And he just dropped out of sight. She runs into him on the street. And she's like, you know, where have you been and all of this? He beat the crap out of her on Madison Avenue in Manhattan. He beat her to the floor, kicked her in her stomach, beat her down. Needless to say, 9 months later, she has a baby, and that damn child looked exactly like him. I don't know what kind of vasectomy that was that he had, but that girl that came out of her womb looked like him with some pigtails. You don't need no DNA test. I mean, dead, spitting image of him. But sure enough, she got left holding the shitty end of the stick. You know, we talk about, you also mentioned the issue of violence against women. And, you know, once again, unfortunately, this is not a problem that only Dominican women face. I have friends in the East Indian community, North African communities, Middle Eastern communities. I have a friend in college. She's Palestinian. And on the day of her mother's marriage, her mother and father, they had an arranged marriage. And in their society, on the wedding night, the man is supposed to show the woman, you know, like, make sure that, put her in his place. And it was some trivial thing, but he slapped her. She got up and she slapped the out of him. And she told him, don't you ever put your hands on me ever again. And sure enough, he never raised a hand to her. Why? Because she set the tone. She let him know how he was supposed to treat her. And unfortunately, too many women all over the world do not do the same. They do not hold their ground and stick up for themselves. In that situation, you either nail that in the bud or you leave. I don't think a woman should ever be in a situation where a man thinks it's all right for him to put his hands on her. I mean, if it comes to that point where you got to beat each other, personally, dissolve the marriage. Because to me, that's not a healthy situation for either person to be in. And God knows if there's children involved, it's not healthy for them to see that kind of nonsense going on either. It's just not. And I think a lot of these men who do this kind of thing, I think, you know, this thing about it's poverty. Listen, there's a lot of poor people all over the world. They're not beating their wives. I think this is dysfunctional behavior. And unfortunately, these men grew up in dysfunctional families, dysfunctional homes, where they saw that kind of behavior and they were traumatized. And unfortunately, they internalized this thing, and now they're acting it out themselves because this is what they were taught. But I don't think a woman should ever be in that situation where she allows that to happen to herself. Another issue that people were, bringing up toward, you and criticizing you about is this whole notion of a woman supposed to know her place and she's supposed to stay in the home and take care of the kids while the man goes out and supports her. Listen, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that we live in a perfect world with a perfect economy and you can do that. Well, looking at my own family history, I can tell you that doesn't work. And I'm going to tell you why. So my grandfather, back in Jamaica, he was a very successful businessman. He had several businesses. He was also a politician. He was one of the founding members of one of our two political parties in Jamaica. He took care of his home. He took care of his family. They had a beautiful house. They had servants. My mother and my aunt and uncle, they went to private school. They had no want for anything. But my grandmother, she said to him, Nicky, listen, you have all these businesses. Don't you think you should teach me how to take care of these, businesses, just in case anything happens to you? I'll know what to do. Oh, you're a woman. That's not your place. You don't need to worry about that. If anything happens to me, my lawyers will take care of everything. And he was right. My grandfather was assassinated by people from the opposition party. And when he died, his lawyers took care of everything. Yeah, they really did. And left my grandmother with absolutely nothing. The only thing she was able to hold on to was one nightclub. But because he never taught her anything about the business, she didn't know how to run it and she lost it. So even if a woman marries Prince Charming and he's got all the money in the world and he can take care of her and all she has to do is stay home, what happens if he dies? What happens if he gets sick and he's incapacitated and he can't run his business anymore or he can't work? Then what? So this myth of this time back in the past where everything was just, everybody was just sitting around a campfire singing Kumbaya, and daddy brought home the bacon and mommy fried it up in a pan and served it 8 different ways, that was always an illusion. Sure, some people were lucky enough that they never faced any real situations, any real trials. But there were a lot of people who fell through the cracks. A lot of women who ended up losing their husbands because of death, because of illness, because of all kinds of circumstances. And they were left in desperate situations. So, in my estimation, especially today, a woman has to be financially independent. A woman has to have a strong financial foundation to stand on. And it doesn't mean that you're going to try to start being the man in the relationship. No, the two of you need to come together and have an understanding that you are running a household and have an agreement of what role each of you will play in this situation. And sometimes, maybe even though you have your designated agreements of who does what, there's going to be a time when somebody needs to pick up the slack. Sometimes if it's the wife's role to cook and clean, well, something, there's going to be times when the husband needs to cook and clean, because what happens if mommy's in the hospital? What happens if mommy dies? The children supposed to starve? You're supposed to live in a pigsty? No. So realistically, Men have to know how to pull their own. Women have to be able to do the same. Why? Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to take care of your family unit. And if one of the important pillars in that unit is disabled for some reason, then the other person has to be strong enough to pick up the slack so that the family does not fall apart. This is just common sense, reality. You know, it really hit me hard when I saw all the criticism that you were getting, because my mom was that individual that, they say a woman should be. And because of it, my mom lost her life. My mom was the typical Caribbean woman, beautiful woman. But she carried so much guilt in herself because she didn't feel that she was enough. She married my father when she was young, and unfortunately, that marriage, they were really young. When they had me, they were 24, and they just did not have the experience, the wisdom to know how to deal with difficult life circumstances that confronted them, and the marriage fell apart. My mother remarried again, and that marriage was not optimal either, and she carried that guilt with her. She stayed married, and personally, I think she should have let go and moved on, but she believed in marriage. And my mom was a beautiful woman. I mean, she had men always after. She could have had any man that she wanted, but she stayed faithful to her husband. And I think that she should have, personally, I think that she should have moved on. They should have went their separate ways. I think she should have taken some time for herself and then allowed somebody else who was better to come into her life. But she would have had to have done some soul searching and some work on herself to do that, because, like I said, my mom was the kind of woman who sacrificed herself. And how did she end up in a situation where that ultimately took her life before her time? Because my mom was only 77 years old. She died on her birthday, 77 years old. I have a younger sister. My youngest sister has Down syndrome. And I guess once again, my mom had a sense of guilt where that situation was concerned. And my mom was coming home from work one evening and she fell. She injured her knee. And she should have gone and gotten an operation right then and there, but she refused to do it because she didn't want to leave my sister alone. Now, everybody was telling her, "Ma, there's a whole house full of people here who can watch, who can watch her while you go to the hospital. It's not a big deal. Go and get it done." And she refused to do it because she felt that that was her role to take care of her daughter. Nobody else should do that, only her. Well, because that knee was injured, then she had to compensate with the other knee, and that ended up in arthritis in the other knee. She's always up and down shopping and doing everything for everyone. So now you got two bad knees and you're out there hobbling around in the street all day long, taking care of everybody except yourself. Now she got arthritis in her spine, in her lower back, spinal stenosis. She's so busy taking care of everybody else. She's not eating properly. She's not taking care of herself. Now she's got diabetes. Because of the diabetes, now you've got high blood pressure. You're so busy taking care of everybody else all day, all night. You don't go to bed at night. You're falling asleep at the kitchen table. You're falling asleep in the living room instead of going and getting a full night's rest because you're wearing yourself out all day long. Now you got high cholesterol. And all those things together resulted, she should have taken medication that was prescribed for her, and I don't know if she thought it was just too much of a bother. She didn't like the way it made her feel, and she needs to be able to do this and to do that for everybody else except herself. And then she ends up getting a massive stroke. So now she's got a massive stroke. She's got cognitive problems. She ends up and then all those disabilities. And she ends up in a nursing home where they're not taking care of her. And I fought for 2 years to save her life, but there was only so much that I could do. She was in somebody else's hands, and I couldn't get her out. I couldn't get the services that she would have needed to be able to come home and get the kind of care that would have saved her life. And sure enough, she passed away. While she was in that nursing home, she had 2 more strokes. And she ended up passing away before her time. So I share all of that to say, and I know this is running on, half an hour, but I don't give a damn how many people really watch this. The people who need to hear this message are the people who are going to watch this video. And so I would say to you and to any woman, I don't care if you are Dominican, Latina, West Indian, Middle Eastern, Asian, whoever you are, wherever you are. If you are a woman and you are hearing my words today, I want you to know that you have a right to take care of yourself. If you have children and you're worried about taking care of your children and you're the kind of person who sacrifices, yes, by all means. I'm not going to criticize a mother's love. But at the same time, you have to realize that in this life, there comes times when you have to put yourself first. Because if anything happens, as much as you care about your children, you want to be there for them, your family. If something happens to you, who's going to take care of them? Especially if they're small. So yes, as a woman, things that you need to do and not feel any type of way for people criticizing. You need to be educated. You need to have a strong financial foundation. I'm not saying to be one of these chicks talking about, I got mine, I don't need no man. And no. It ain't about, I don't need a man. It's about you have what you need to take care of yourself, and the two of you come together in a partnership out of mutual respect for each other to create a family. A stable family of children who are having their physical, their material, and their emotional and spiritual needs met. Okay? So have that foundation. Take care of your health. If you know there's things you got to do, don't keep putting it off because the kids need this, the kids need that, my husband this, my husband that. Take care of your health. Go get your checkups. If there's medications that you need to be taking to maintain your health, take your medications. Watch your diet. Make sure that you exercise. Take some time to nurture yourself. Your own peace of mind. You need to take care of yourself. Because when all is said and done, as a man, men, we can't do this all by ourselves. We need our women. And our women in our lives are our right hands. So when these people come and they want to criticize you, sweetie, I hope you realize that you should not feel any type of way about it. Okay, these are people who are stuck in the damn Stone Age. We are not living in the Renaissance. We're not living in the 18th century. We're not even living in the 19th century or even the 20th century. We're living in the 21st century now, and our situations are different. Our circumstances are different. And we have to adapt, and we have to change, and we have to reevaluate the dynamics in our society in order to make sure that we have healthy societies. So don't take it any kind of way. Don't feel any kind of shame or any kind of guilt because people want to come and tell you that in their estimation, you're not the right kind of woman. What the hell does a man know about being a woman? When that gets his period, or he gets his cramps, his menstrual cramps, then let him come and tell you what you need to do as being a woman. But until that time, well, I would say they can kiss your ass, but honestly, I don't know what the hell they've done to deserve such a pleasure. But they need to stay in their own damn lane and let you take care of you and do what you need to do as a woman for yourself. So, sweetie, I'm going to end it now because this is going on. But I just want to share that word with you of encouragement, and to all the women out there, to all of my female subscribers, and to anyone who comes along this video. Don't let anybody make you feel second best or make you feel less than what you really are worth. Without women, there would be no civilization as we know it to begin with. Okay? So, love yourself, bless yourself, keep your head high, keep it moving. Peace.